Welcome to Midlife Matters. I'm Marie, and each week I'm joined by my friends Julie and Mindy to talk about all the topics keeping women in the middle years up at night. Today we're talking about midlife marriage. There will naturally be ebbs and flows in connection over the years, and all of us experience ups and downs in any long-term relationship. Join us as we share what we've learned about our own marriages over the years and how we've grown and changed together. Listeners, today we're talking about connection in marriage. And last fall, we asked for topic ideas from our listeners, and we got a ton of emails and messages on Instagram, and several of them had to do with marriage in midlife. A lot of people asked if we could do an episode on midlife marriage. And Julie, Mindy, and I are by no means experts, but we do have a lot of years under our belts. I've been married for 28 years. Julie, how long have you been married?
35 this year.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Mindy?
Oh, yeah. Us 25 this year.
All right. So, Julie, you're the smartest among us. Quickly add those three numbers.
I have a calculator, Marie.
Almost
right here on
90.
my phone.
About
Okay.
90.
Combined, we have almost 90 years of experience. You guys, almost 100 years of experience. If we don't say at least one wise thing on this episode, what are we even doing with a podcast?
I don't know.
That's a lot of responsibility.
It
Yeah,
is.
it
It is. As we all know, marriage goes through many stages and ups and downs over the years. And sometimes it's good to hear from other women and know that a lot of other people are experiencing or have experienced similar things. At least it's good for me. I know that sometimes if you don't talk to your women friends, you're kind of like, oh, we're probably the only one that have ever gone through this. Have you guys ever felt that way?
It always helps to know that you're not alone. And sometimes you can actually realize maybe the problem's you, or you work through things without even having to work it out with your spouse sometimes by talking to your friends, you know?
Right. I know I'm real selective about who I would talk to about my marriage. And
Except you'll share it on a podcast, Mindy.
yeah, you know,
But go on.
selective other than the podcast, but you know. But I love that you and Julie both have been married longer than Bryce and I. And so it's nice to talk to people that have been married longer. We always talk about this, looking ahead with any and every situation, just to know like, okay, I really respect your marriage. I love the relationship that I see that you have. And so knowing that those people struggle is very, very helpful.
Right. Yeah, I think that's true. I think that I probably wouldn't talk to someone that's been married 5 years about my marriage because they probably don't really have much insight into the problem that I might be experiencing. Not that they haven't had their own ups and downs, but I do think that what you're saying, Mindy, about being selective and looking ahead and at somebody who may have already gone through it is a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I would never talk to anybody who said they never fight or have any problems.
Oh, yeah, they're lying.
That's just flat out not true.
I don't talk to those people about anything.
Their kids are
Especially
perfect too.
married.
Yeah.
No, but that's true. Like if you've set yourself up as perfect, then probably I'm not going to feel like you have much advice to give me because you've never gone through it.
Well, and I just don't think two different people can live together and not have some conflict.
Right.
It's just not
It's
possible.
true. It's true. You're two, human beings with different likes and dislikes, and it's inevitable.
Right. Well, I don't know if you guys know, but we are coming up on Valentine's Day.
Ooh.
So that's why we're putting this episode out this week. But, Valentine's Day, that's kind of all about feeling connected. And that's kind of where we're going with this podcast today, was just the ebbs and flows of connection in our marriage. Because, like when you're feeling connected, you can take on the world and it doesn't matter what problem you're going through. Things are going well.
Right.
There could be no problems, but if you're feeling disconnected, it's like the whole world is ending. And so anyways, hopefully, if you are listening to this and you are not feeling connected to your spouse and you're thinking, oh, Valentine's Day, what are we even going to do? Maybe we give you a little bit of hope. And if you are feeling super connected, we just hope that this is a continued encouragement because it comes and goes. And I think that's what you're going to get out of this episode is that connection comes and goes. It can come and go all in the same day. And I'm sure we'll be talking about that later. All right. Well, let's get started with a connection question. Describe some times when you felt more connected to your spouse and times when connection wasn't as strong. All right, Mindy, start us out. When have you and Bryce felt particularly connected?
I always feel like we are more connected when we have major things happening. Like we know that we are walking into a season where we have to communicate a lot. Like we're about to move, for instance. We have to communicate about details and logistics and things like that. I remember when we were going to have a baby, I felt like during that season of pregnancy that there's a lot of talking and planning and anticipating. And so it just always seemed like anytime life was about to change, that we knew that it was about to change. There's this excitement. You're constantly talking about it with each other. And so it just was one of those things that I felt like kind of naturally pulled us closer because it really gave us one common goal that we were shooting for together.
Yeah, I definitely think working towards a goal together or going through a big life change together draws you closer. Speaking of which, and maybe I'm the only one that experienced this, but like I remember our first big feeling, or at least my first big feeling of disconnect was after the birth of our first child. Like leading up to it, I don't really remember these times of feeling disconnected, but I remember after we brought our first child home, I don't know if it's like all the hormones and all the changes and the sleepless nights and the radical newness of all your responsibility and just a complete lifestyle change. But I felt very overwhelmed, disconnected. I felt like it was probably, 6 to 9 months before, we really started to get into a rhythm. Not that we were fighting all the time. I'm not at all implying that. But I'm just saying that is a big growing and changing time in your marriage.
That's funny you say that because I wrote down that I felt more connected before babies and less connected after the baby came.
That is true. Like every single child that's come. And like with my second, third, and then even the twins, I just knew to expect that. I knew it would be 6 to 9 months before we were really connecting again. And I think a lot of that just is hormonal, nursing and up in the night and just, taking care of so many other things. You just don't take care of yourselves.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mindy, in that when I look back and see when we've been the closest, it was definitely when we were communicating well. And that's not always an easy thing for us, or working together for a common goal. And especially anticipating something. So buying a new house, moving, even though those are stressful times, I feel like we came together on those. And like you said, Marie, expecting a new baby. Those are always just exciting times of anticipation. And I would say traveling. When we travel together, we're well connected. So I think it helps to have a lot of common interests with your spouse. And I know John and I do. I know some spouses that they don't have any similar interest. And I think that would be hard for me. So I'm thankful that we have a lot of interest, the same interest. And I would say right now would probably be our strongest connection. Things that used to seem big or annoying or some hill to die on are really pretty insignificant in light of a serious illness. My perspective is just so different now with John's diagnosis that I just don't get angry with him. I don't complain. I don't argue with him. And we talk more openly than we ever have. And there's just no arguing with your husband when he has stage 4 cancer. And I'm not saying that he still does everything that he did and I just overlook it. Like he's a different person, And I just wish that we could have lived our whole married lives like that. I don't think you can unless you have to, but it is a good lesson to just think, okay, what's important here.
Right.
Yeah. I think listeners and ourselves included, we'd all say that a bigger sense of connection comes when we've spent more time together. So anything that interrupts that, whether it's like a really intense job schedule for one of you or new babies or teenagers, like when you go into the teenage years in midlife, your marriage takes another, I know, Mindy, I've heard you say your marriage takes another hit. It really does, because teenagers take up time and emotional space in a big way. And we don't always appreciate that. We don't always recognize that because they're not little hanging on your apron strings with real immediate needs, but they have a lot of emotional and time sensitive and parenting like wisely type needs that takes up a lot of mental and emotional space. And it can come between you and your husband too, or not even if it comes between you, but it just causes extra stress dealing with this. I know, Mindy, you're nodding your head.
Yeah.
I am. And it's ironic because we're in this season again. We've got 2 teenage boys in the house. And I was just thinking about, something Julie said, and also what you said just kind of triggered this thought that I had is we have to really look for things that we have in common sometimes, like our schedules don't necessarily line up, or, we don't seem to be kind of interested in the same things, or, and so ironically, something that has happened recently is we've started watching NBA basketball together. I know this sounds so silly, but both of our boys are playing basketball. We don't have a whole lot of time at night. Over the summers, we would go for walks together, and that would give us time to kind of talk. Well, in the winter, it's dark. You're in the house a lot, and it's like, what do you do? Well, we love watching basketball together. This is a new thing for us. Like, it is completely new. We have never done this before, and we've had to kind of find something that we both enjoy, and we've had to learn to enjoy it. And it just kind of happened. But I mean, I think of other times when we weren't feeling connected and we had to actually try to find a new hobby together. We have joined a running group together. When we lived in Nashville, I remember we joined a co-ed volleyball league at our church. And one night a week, we would go play volleyball together. And so there's just been different times where we have had to find something that we could do together because it wasn't naturally happening.
Right.
Yeah. I would second the teenager thing that, you've kind of breezed through the elementary school years right after the really hard baby years. And then you suddenly find yourself right back into the situation where you have no idea what you're doing again. And, we've talked about this before. It's a lonely time. It's a fearful time. I know I was always a little unsure. Am I doing this right? And we didn't always agree on how we wanted to handle the situation. And we'd have to have time to discuss that and how we were going to implement our strategy. And so it was hard sometimes coming to an agreement on that. And then I was always the one that really had to enforce it because I was home all day, And so that could cause some tension. And you're right. It's just it's an emotionally tiring time that can be a real strain on a marriage.
Yeah. And I would think that a lot of our listeners are in that stage. You're in that stage of midlife marriage where your kids are entering or are in the middle of or are heading out of, but you're dealing with teenagers in some form. And so you can relate to what we're saying, and it takes you by surprise. If you're not there yet, you'll remember these words when you do get there.
Another area that I thought about, at least this is true for us, that was always associated with more distance in our marriage or stress, was if John was not happy in his work. And there's this saying that, if mom ain't happy, nobody's happy. But I think when men aren't happy in their job, that comes home and can really cause a lot of stress. And I remember we had been married about 10 years when we moved from Memphis to Nashville. And probably for like year through 6 through 10, John was not happy at work, and it's just not where he wanted to be, not what he wanted to do. And so there's a lot of fear in that, like we were going to have to leave, find a new job. And Mindy, I know you can really can relate to that. And, I did not want to leave my family. That's where I grew up. That's where I'd lived my whole life. And I did not want to leave there. And so that caused a lot of tension. And I remember getting a lot of advice from older people saying, it would really be great for you to live someplace where neither family was, at least for a while, during the early years. And I hated that advice. I resented that advice. Like I didn't want to be around anybody that was going to tell me that, because I thought, I don't have a bad relationship with my family or whatever, and I thought, well, I was really missing the point. Because once we moved, I saw what they meant, that we weren't leaving anything bad, but we had to cling to each other at that point and to the Lord more so than we ever had. There was no one to help us out. We had to forge new friendships together. We had to find a church. We had to find our house. We had to, everything was new together. Nothing to rely on from each other's past. And I think that's when you really learn to talk and communicate and pay attention to your, what your spouse's needs are. And it was just a time of unity and kind of solidifying us. Like it's just, you really do cling to each other when those little security blankets are removed. And that's just something I couldn't see and didn't really want to hear before, but it's something, I could see afterwards.
Yeah, I can definitely see how that happens. I mean, we didn't do that intentionally, but just by default, we always lived far enough away that it wasn't just like easy to get help of family and easy for things. And so we did have to make those things happen on our own. And now at this point in our lives, we do live close to family, and I appreciate it so much because in the early years, I didn't really have that. I was going to second about the man's job, though. And Mindy, I know you'll be thirding this. Like, if your husband is not happy in his job, you're going to feel it at home. And you're going to be so happy if he can get happy in his job. And that's just the way it is. I mean, I cannot be happy if Steve is not happy in his job because it naturally permeates our family life. So I want whatever has to happen for him to be happy in his job.
Amen.
Yeah, it's just so much of who they are. So it's hard for them if they're not happy. It's hard for them to pour into a marriage because they're struggling.
All right. Well, let's talk a little about the feelings. Like when you think about being connected or disconnected, what words come to your mind about how you feel?
I will say, Marie, you kind of started us off with this idea, but this is so true for me. And I don't know when this changed. We've all been married, I'll say a long time, but certainly the emotions are really strong if I am not feeling connected with Bryce, because he's my home. Like, we have gone through so much together that we have my person for everything. If I'm not feeling connected with him, like nothing is right in my day. So I have an overall sadness about me. And it's not something that I can just get past. Like things have to be good with him. I can't go very long without them being good because I just can't live like that. Like, I really cannot thrive without being connected with him. I could be mad at him, but if, that's fine. I'm going to get mad at him. Like, that's totally normal. But like that connection, I'm like, I have to know that my home is good and he's my home.
Yeah. You're right. You can be in an argument. That's different. But if there's distance, there's just this feeling in the pit of your stomach that it's just not right. And nothing else is right. You just don't feel good about anything else you're doing. And then when you are connected, you're right, Marie. It's like, you feel like, well, we can conquer anything, bring it on.
Yes. I can have conflict with any other person on the planet and be okay as long as Bryce and I are okay. I'm like, okay, well, you're my person, so I could care less about them. I mean, I'm just...
I'm feeling really small here, Mindy.
I care about other people, but I can more handle it, But like if it's Bryce, like I can't handle it. I'm a mess.
Sure. No, I mean, that's totally understandable. And I think true in most cases,
Yeah.
Well, we joked about this a little bit at the beginning of the episode, but I will just say, and you guys tell me if this is true for you, but cycles of connectedness and disconnectedness can happen and change very quickly. Like, you can go through all in one day sometimes. My mind always goes to like road conversations. I feel like you might start out on a road trip like, oh, this is fun, and you're talking, and then like something comes to light, and then you're kind of like mad, and you might spend a half hour staring out the window, and then it's like, okay, well, we're getting close to our destination. I guess we can try to make up, and then maybe you do make up, but like all in that road trip, there were a lot of different emotions. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yes. So actually, not too long ago, we had all of our family together. And I got miffed at Bryce over something. He knows what he did. And and I was thinking, like, this is a terrible time to be mad at him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, all the family is together. And so I had a moment and I sat down with my journal, and I don't know how, like, I feel like this was the Holy Spirit, but it was really just a reminder that I am going to forgive him. We are going to get past this. He is in trouble and he will apologize. And I started praying that the Lord would not let him rest until he apologized to me. But I remember thinking, like, you still have to function. You've got all these people in your home. And so there was some kind of comfort, though, that being married a long time gave me. Like, we are going to get past that. Like, it was so little, so minute in comparison to the life that we have. So we did get past it.
That's such a good way to think about it. In the middle of the argument, to think we will get past this. This will be okay.
Yes,
I'm sure that helped a lot.
Like, literally in my journal, I wrote, "I'm so mad. Like, I'm so mad about this, but I know that I'm going to forgive him, and I know that we're going to get past it." It wasn't anything life altering. It was just an emotional myth. But
yeah. No, that's true. And most of the time, I think we do come and go out of those cycles relatively quickly. I'm trying to think, because I'm thinking that somebody might be listening and thinking, I feel like we've been in a disconnected cycle for months now.
Right.
And like, I don't know that I am going to come out of it. And we don't always know that we will. I have experienced times, mostly times after the birth of children, where it has been months long of, not that we were going to separate or anything, but just I've felt disconnected. I've felt like all my emotional space has gone to the new baby and the kids that I already have, and there's really nothing left for Steve. And I need him to just keep plugging along. I guess that's how that feels for me when we go through stages like that, or if it's been like a really big move or really big home projects or really stressful events. It's like all my energy needs to go towards just the kids and keeping life sane for them. And I need you to just take care of yourself for a while. Like, don't expect anything from me. And maybe that's just kind of a, like, you just can't do it all. And so maybe that person kind of is in a season where I'm juggling 8 million plates and we're disconnected right now. But know that you can come through that. It might not even be like you're mad at each other. It's not like you're mad. It's just that you don't have any emotional space left to give.
I would say we went through a period like that several years ago when John's job was tough, long hours. He would come home fatigued. And who knows, he may have been getting sick. I don't know. I just remember him not feeling very well and just being really tired and just spent. Like when he came home after a 12-hour day, he was just done. Right? And he would just like fall asleep on the couch or feel like, oh, I don't even want to eat dinner at the table. I'll just eat it, in front of the television or whatever. And it's like you said, we weren't mad. It was just distant. And I just kind of had to find things that I enjoyed and find my own interests. And sometimes if he were on call and I'd have to go to that party by myself, and it was just a kind of a icky time of distance. And it wasn't anything that either one of us could really help. It was just, there was not a lot to give because of other things going on in our lives. So yeah, it can last. It can last a while sometimes.
Yeah, like sometimes that there's just a season that's difficult. And I can name certain seasons in our marriage where we have been through things like that, where even like when Bryce was in grad school and Abby and Grant were young before we had the younger boys, we've talked, we had to intentionally get to know each other again when he was done with grad school. And then we moved away from family. And I mean, just so much had happened that we were like, we actually need to intentionally get to know each other again now, because we've just come out of a season of complete distance, really long hours, 2 little kids, not near enough time. So, but it's enough of those. I know there've been some times where it's like, especially if you're both emotionally spent, something that we have enacted is we'll just try to sit on the same couch. And that seems so simple, but it was actually a very big deal. It's like, you don't have the emotions, to really get into talking about everything. Like you're both just kind of done. But even sometimes just sitting next to each other can help in those distant seasons when you don't have a lot of time to, to really connect.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And it's hard if your love language is time, because there's not a lot of substitutes for that,
Right.
So that can make it harder. Yeah. But I remember this is more a time when we would argue, not necessarily feeling distant, but I remember when we were first married, like first couple of years, we'd be going to a party and we'd get in an argument on the way and we'd be hashing it out and we'd John would just pull right into the driveway. I was like, let's just drive around, but he'd pull into the driveway. I would think, oh, we're going to get out of the car. No, we're not getting out of the car. We're going to finish this. We're going to finish this. We're going to get to the bottom of this. So people are going in the house and there we are.
Oh, that's so embarrassing.
We are going to finish this. So then, and I just thought of how different it is when you get older. It's like you could bicker all the way.
Yeah.
And then you just hop out of the car, put the big smile on your face. You walk in, have a great time, knowing full well you're just going to pick it back up when you get on the way home.
Oh my goodness.
I think as you get older, you just know some disagreements are inevitable and even acceptable. And you just, your tolerance level, changes.
Right. Well, let's talk about like the different tolerances that you guys have for closeness and distance versus your husband. I know that Steve has a much higher tolerance for distance. I don't even know that he recognizes it as distance. He doesn't even notice that it's distance. Whereas my barometer for closeness, if I don't feel close, I know right away. And I'm usually the one that has to bring it to his attention. Is that the way that it is in your relationships?
I would say mine and John's are about the same. He's pretty sensitive to that. But I'm maybe the one that brings it up. Okay, we need some time here. We need to talk. We need to figure out this.
Right. It is the opposite for Bryce and I. His tolerance is a lot lower than mine. And I have been the one that's like, what? You feel distant? And but I appreciate that he tells me. And I do take it seriously when he does. And I certainly have my times where, I will feel that. But I recognize that he tends to be the one that will bring it to my attention. And then he will be the one that will say, hey, you want to join that running group? Or, hey, you want to go, do dance classes, or something like that. And so he has been the leader of trying to help us get back on the same page. But however, I am the one that sat down to watch the NBA basketball. So
all right.
I will pat myself on the back for that one. But otherwise,
you're coming to the middle on that one.
He's a lot more emotionally intelligent, I think, than I am.
Well, I think some of the reasons that we might feel distance and not close and maybe not even noticing it right away is because there is a strain on our marriage. And I know that we have alluded to some of the ones that we've talked about have been like job dissatisfaction or work stress or kids. But are there other strains on a marriage that you guys can think of where you felt disconnected and you felt like, just really did a number?
I'd like to say that health issues can do that. And I'm not even talking about maybe the one that seems most obvious is John's health right now. But when you have a child that's sick, that can be a real strain on a marriage. And I know our oldest son had a pain issue that went undiagnosed that we ended up taking him to Mayo Clinic for. And I had another child that struggled with depression for a couple of years. And those both just kind of hit me out of the blue. And I didn't know how to talk about them. I didn't know where to get help. It was a very frightening time. And it was just painful to watch your children suffer. And once again, it's not that John and I had any disagreements, but you just are so consumed by that and so worried and anxious and focused on that you, for some reason, kind of can pull away from your spouse. That seems like just the opposite of what you would do, but it's like you just don't have anything to give to that. And I've heard of people like who their child gets cancer or they lose a child in a car wreck and they get divorced after that. And I always thought, why would that be? That seems like the opposite of what should happen or would be the natural thing. but there must be something to that, that
Mm-hmm.
health issues can really cause some problems.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That was one of the things I thought of is just when we walked through our miscarriages, Bryce and I grieved differently, very differently. And we didn't really know how to talk about it. Like it was earlier in our marriage. We were hurt, but hurt differently. We had a harder time talking about that. It just took us a while to kind of get back on the same page and recover.
Mm-hmm.
And then even just, something as simple as one of our sons being diagnosed with ADHD, it seemed like it wasn't a big deal. Like we both kind of handled it differently.
Mm-hmm.
And it took going to a child psychologist as a family, like the three of us. And then it became a wonderful thing for us to walk through. Like then we learned more about our son and just some different ways to handle it. And it helped us grow together by going to that child psychologist. And he was a Christian psychologist based in Nashville. But anyway, something that had been coming between us then brought us closer together once we kind of delved in together at the same time. But
maybe that's it. Maybe it's the personality differences. Because I know John did not grieve those illnesses the way I did. He saw it as an opportunity to find a solution. And I saw it as,
right.
Oh no, this is going to be terrible.
Right.
I wasn't looking for the possibilities for the solution. I was stuck in the, look how bad this is,
Mm-hmm.
Right. Right.
So some conflict probably came out of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk a little bit about conflict in marriage. Do you guys have general principles for how you handle conflict in your marriage?
I do.
Okay. What are they, Mindy?
I tell him what he did wrong.
And then you're willing to listen as he tells you what you did wrong, right?
As he apologizes. No, I'm willing to listen. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
No, like I have been humbled so many times at things that I did not see. And I'll say the only principle that I have now is that I really do. I joked about this earlier, but I do pray. I pray for my husband and I will tell the Lord all of my feelings about the situation. And I will ask the Lord to fight for me, vindicate me, be, protect me. Like whatever I'm feeling, I ask the Lord to be that. And then it's amazing because I know that the Lord has gone before Bryce and I. And then it's like when Bryce comes home, it may not happen right away, but the Lord has fought for us, not me. He's fought for us because Bryce will come and he will. It's not like he's saying exactly what I want to hear. He's saying what he needs to say. And the Lord will convict me of things that I had not seen, that I was withholding or doing or saying that were not loving towards my husband. But it really, I pray to the Lord and I don't hold anything back because I let the Lord have it all. He knows it anyway. And I feel like the Lord has fought for my marriage and smoothed out the rough surfaces and given us unity where we have seen conflict.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say as principles, and I know that you probably feel this way too, Mindy, but like one thing is, I might joke later about what we fought about, but I don't call somebody up and say like, oh, listen to what Steve did. What a jerk. I am telling you. Like, I might think those things in my mind, but I don't complain like to my mom or to my sister or to my friend. Like the fight is between us. I may say later, oh yeah, we once got in a really big fight about X, but I don't have the minute by minute, So I think sometimes and I feel like Steve does the same. Like we keep our disagreements private. Also, we don't usually yell in front of the kids. I mean, now maybe they've heard us yell from behind a closed door because I'm not going to say on the podcast that I'm against yelling. I mean, I wish I never yelled, but sometimes I just need to yell about something and I need to say it at a loud volume. I need to. And I'm a verbal processor and I need to say my words. And maybe those words sound stupid in the moment, but I'll realize them as I say them. Like I need to process it verbally. And we do we try really hard. Now, after 28 years of marriage, I'd be lying if I said there was never a night that we went to bed angry at each other, but we do try really hard to solve it before we go to sleep because neither one of us sleeps well if we're fighting.
Right.
And it's just, you're just going to have to pick it up the next day anyway,
Yeah, that's no fun. Love those principles, Marie.
Julie, do you have any principles?
Yeah, similar ones, just to respect each other. I think that's really, really important. And to just try to solve things as quickly as possible, not to let them fester and go on, and not to bring up the past too much. I am not a yeller because I'm a internal processor, so I tend to shut down. And that's really, really hard for me because John is a verbal processor. And so when he gets loud, I've learned to recognize, okay, where's this emotion coming from? What is he needing from me? And it's usually that he wants to hear from me.
Right.
And I'm just not ready yet, So I've had to learn to say, I'm not ready to talk about this yet. And that's all he needs. But I used to just get quiet and not say anything, thinking he should be able to read my mind. And I know he can't. Even though we've been married 35 years, I thought, surely you can read it by now, but he still can't. So I have to kind of learn to recognize the emotion and back it up and say, okay, what's missing here? What is he needing from me? So, yeah.
And as much as we don't want to go to bed angry, sometimes certain things take a little time. Like you can't deal with it when you're emotional. You have to let it just kind of calm down, get some perspective, and come back. So hopefully that's at a time, that you can do that. Because sometimes it does take just a little perspective, just a little time, and you can come at each other with, you can be a lot more loving and kind and logical, and actually say what you want to say instead of speaking from emotion.
Because sometimes at night, we just don't see things clearly. Like I'm talking late at night, like we've gone around and around and around. And in the light of day, it sometimes gets solved a lot quicker.
Right. Yeah. Or just a good night's sleep. Yes. We try not to talk about stuff at night. If we can help it, if we can help it.
Right.
Right. I know I have said in the past, or he has said in the past, like, I really don't like this, it's not right, but, will you just hold me? Like, let's just not talk, but maybe just hold me. So it's like the comfort that, like, again, it kind of reminds you, like, he's my person. We're going to get through it. I don't like what's happening right now with our words, and neither one of us can seem to get the right ones out. So we're just going to be quiet for now and just hold each other.
Yeah. All right. Well, what are some of your trigger and hot button issues? Or I'm sure we all know them by now. And they're kind of funny to think about. Like at this point in your marriage, it's like, okay, we already know what is going to set us off in a fight. So like, I know that, and Steve knows this, but we still fight about this. The phone etiquette is going to get us in a fight. And, marriage 25 years ago didn't have to deal with this. But, if he picks up his phone when we're having dinner together, I mean, you might as well just raise a red flag in front of a bull because it's like, what? What is so important on that screen?
The yeller is coming out.
And I have gotten better about that over the years because I do know that he sometimes needs to answer things, but I just know that that's one of our trigger issues. Like phone etiquette is going to be one of the things that we fight about. Home projects. I mean, if we are going to do a home project, if we're going to do a home project together, you can bet there's going to be fighting. Because home projects never go smoothly. There's two different people wanting to do them two different ways. There's two different standards of whether it's really done the right way, how you should do it. There's a lot of potential for fights.
There is.
Tons.
Money's getting spent. If you have a contractor, there's people in your house. Like,
yes.
Oh, nightmare.
Yes. Another trigger is for us, like expectations. Like maybe I have expectations of a special day or a holiday or something, but I haven't really communicated those expectations. I've just thought, well, we've been married 28 years. You should know what I like by now.
That sounds like a red flag.
Then my expectations, if they don't get met, I'm like hurt, mad. Again, Julie, with the mind reading, we wonder why people can't read our minds.
After so many years.
Right. But probably our biggest fights are over the way we show love, like our love languages. We have gotten in more fights over love languages. I need words of affirmation. I appreciate Steve's acts of service, but in my mind, they are just what husbands should do. They are not vows of love. And I guess they are if I really stop and think about them, but I don't recognize them as such in the moment. If I do not have words of affirmation, I am completely missing the point of his acts of service. And we have gone round and round and round about this over the years, and we'll probably still be getting in fights when we've been married 50 years because we show love differently.
Yeah, that's a big one. I would say time and words are, I kind of straddle both of those as being my love language. And I think John's is probably gifts. And so, maybe six cans of hot chocolate isn't gonna meet that need. I don't know. I'm teasing. He's a great gift giver. He really is.
He's a very extravagant gift giver. Like he's not just going to give one can of hot chocolate. You're going to get 6 flavors.
And this wasn't powdered. No, this was shaved chocolate.
Oh my!
That you added milk to. This was extravagant. Yes, it was. I'm totally teasing on that, but I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say raise voices, shut me down, at least initially until I figure out what's going on. A trigger that has just become I've had to give up on is let's just eat dinner in front of the television.
Oh, okay.
Let's just eat on the couch. I like to eat at the table. So I've kind of given up on that. But just not giving me his full attention when I'm trying to tell him something important. Projects, yes, especially if I'm doing the project. He doesn't want any part of it, but he does like to direct it, And then
he wants to critique it.
You are going to paint the back side of that door and inside that closet, right? Because he knows that I wouldn't unless he insists. And then finally, I would say purchases, because he's going to be the one to always want to spend more money than me. We'll agree that we need this or that, but he'll want top of the line and I'll want bottom. So we have to compromise.
Right. Well, I'll say with our trigger right now, especially with purchases and house projects, they go hand in hand. And I'm wanting to spend money on the inside of the house and he's wanting to keep spending money on the yard. And I'm like, no, it's time for the inside.
What are some of your other triggers, Mindy?
I'll say, we have already kind of mentioned this, but teenagers. Teenagers really do. They are such wonderful, loving
triggers,
complicated, like emotional.
Yes.
And so sometimes it is really hard to have a teenager going through a mood and you know what I mean? Like they're in a mood and you're like, well, we had a nice family dinner planned and now it's just like, we don't want to spend time with anybody because that mood is permeating. So sometimes we do a better job of just like ignoring said mood and, going to the dining room and having our own dinner together. And so, and other times it's just like, oh my God.
Can we eat in front of the TV tonight?
Yeah, I'm all about that. Is there a basketball game on?
Speaking of solitude, Mindy, like what role does solitude play in your marriage? And I mean, I think we would all say that we need some time alone, but also just that our spouse can't meet all our needs. And so have you kind of found a way to balance this over the years?
Over the years, yes. It was really difficult when we were first married because you're not secure and not, yourself or even your relationship for that matter at the very beginning. Over the years, it's funny that I just had a birthday and part of my gift that Bryce surprised me with was taking the boys out to go help somebody move because it gave me time alone. And I just thought that was really wise of him to know. Like he knows on my birthday, he gave me 2 hours by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And like that was for that to be part of the gift. I mean, that says a lot. But also that we fight for each other's time alone now, whereas we wouldn't have before, because we wouldn't have felt, validated in our relationship if we weren't happy every second or seemingly trying to be happy every second. But we both need that time away to, I don't know, I appreciate Bryce more when I can sit back and reflect. I appreciate who he is, and sometimes even looking at years past, and you need time. You can't always be on. You have to have time to pray, reflect, deal with things that maybe are hurtful and get some perspective and have the Lord show you and get into the word. And I need that. Like, I need to be convicted of my own mess because I'm not perfect either. And so sometimes we really can think that we're just on the right path until we take some time and we kind of start to see ourselves in the truth and in the light. But for Bryce and I, we do need that.
I think it's important to spend time apart just as much as it is to spend time together. Not in equal amounts, of course. But
right.
And I think early marriage, I just always wanted to be with John, every waking moment, like you wanted to be together. Even your friends were couple friends and all of that. But now I love it when he goes out to lunch with Steve or with, you know what I mean? Like with another guy. It's like, he needs that. And I need that with my friends. So that's one thing I've tried to do, is try to have time with other girls, like dinners out, book club, crafting, movie nights, even weekend getaways or trips. I think those are healthy for marriages.
Right.
Your person can't be everything for you. That's an unrealistic expectation and a lot of responsibility for one person. You have to be healthy individuals to have a healthy marriage.
Yeah. All right. Well, what are some things that you guys have done to work on your marriage? If you're talking to the midlife woman and you were just wanted to share some things that have improved your own marriage, what would you say? Okay, I'll start this one out because it sounds funny, but it's also so true. I have learned to hire things out. As I said before, home projects are a source of contention for us. Steve does not like to do them. And this includes even lawn care. Like, he does not want to do them. He does not want to do car care, lawn care, home care. He doesn't want to do them. So I hire out all of that I can. I used to try and cajole him, tell him how much money we would save, try to act like the project would be fun together. It's never fun together. We don't, it's not good. So if at all possible, I hire it out now and it improves our marriage. So that's just one funny thing.
Yes.
That's funny because I had written down, don't try to change your spouse, accept them for who they are. But then I read that somebody said, it's not that they will never change. It's that you can never change them. And I thought that is really good. Like, it's not that you think, well, my husband will always be this way if there's some issue. No, they can change. It's just that you won't be able to force it.
Right.
Or nag it or whatever.
Right.
And that's where prayer comes in. So I would say, praying for your spouse, and just that you have to maintain a marriage. It will never happen without time and effort. It's just not something you can leave on autopilot and hope for the best, because it won't happen. And I would say go away with your spouse, or at least go on dates. And even if that's just a walk after dinner, sitting on the couch together, like you said, watching a basketball game or a movie, just, intentional time, whatever that looks like. I think that's really, really important. And just to appreciate your spouse, say thank you, even for little things. We all want that, and we all need to hear that.
Yes. I love those. The only things that I had was trying to keep an open curiosity about your spouse. You're changing, they're changing too. Give them room to change, and then be their biggest cheerleader. To continue to be proud of them, find the best in them. If you're going through a season that you feel disconnected, I've already mentioned prayer, but one specific prayer that I pray is, Lord, please show me my husband. Show me who he is. Help me to be proud of him. Help me to see the things I'm not seeing. Help me like him more. I know I love him. Help me like him more. And the Lord is so faithful to show me those things. And then I have this overwhelming like amazement at who Bryce is. But it really, sometimes I have to pray and ask the Lord to show me. And so then, being their biggest cheerleader, being proud of them, talking to them about their day, and not just to listen, but to be involved, to remember the names of the people they work with. Like, I feel like Bryce's career is mine. I've stayed at home most of our marriage. And so I like sharing that with him to see it as something that we do together. And this is kind of funny, but not funny. But as you get older, you may or may not have trouble sleeping. And we have talked about that on a previous podcast. So when you're in midlife, Bryce and I have noticed that like sometimes we'll go to bed at different times. Like one of us will wake up and, move to the couch in the middle of the night because like it's a back issue or you're hot or, like you have all these things. So Bryce and I have joked, we're like, we actually need to try to go to bed at the same time again. And I know we're not going to wake up at the same time. So that's not even on my to-do list because he wakes up too early. But
yeah.
But trying to go to bed at the same time is actually something that we try to do because it just helps us to be more on the same page.
Yeah, we try to do that. And you're right, Mindy, as you get older, the sleep issue, like I could never understand why my grandparents had separate bedrooms, both sets. But I can totally understand how you could get to that point because it's like you just already have so much trouble sleeping. And it's not really the falling asleep. It's the middle of the night and early morning and all of that. So yeah, if you can go to bed at the same time together, that's a big deal. Yeah. Yeah. And Mindy, I liked what you said at the beginning too, is you need to find new hobbies together. And in midlife, I think you have to do this all over again. Like the things that we used to like to do together when we first got married, we owned mountain bikes, went with another couple. We don't do mountain biking anymore. We used to play tennis a lot. I mean, not that interested in tennis anymore. Like there's things that we used to do together a lot that we wouldn't really do right now, but you're always having to change because physical bodies change, your interests change. Like there's tons of things that change. So you have to try to keep finding those things that interest you. And sometimes it can be a little bit hard. Like you said, Mindy, you really have to get to know your spouse again, but that's so worth it because then you can spend time doing that thing together and you grow closer. So I think that's one of the biggest things. And I think that's one of the more fearful things. Like I know that all my kids will be at college next year, college or married, and Steve and I will sit across the table just with each other. And that can be a little nerve-wracking. I've heard other women talk about that too. Like after you've had kids around your dinner table for 26 years, sometimes it's a little overwhelming to think, well, what will we talk about? And just accept that it's a process. Like you're going to have to grow through it and you're going to come out the other side, but you're going to have to go through that water.
Yeah. And I've heard marriage counselors say or I was reading this saying there was like a list of topics you couldn't talk about with your spouse at the dinner table. And it was kids, work, in-laws, it was like all the things. And I thought that's what you have to do in midlife because you don't talk about your kids as much, know. So it gets hard to find interesting topics, and it's definitely something you have to work at. It doesn't just flow out naturally like it used to. Right.
Well, listeners, we hope that this episode has been encouraging for you if you are in midlife marriage. And even if you're not there yet, I hope it's encouraging for you just to know that your marriage is going to go through lots of ebbs and flows and ups and downs, and you'll still be standing together at the end of it. All right, well, let's move into I'm a Fan. Mindy, what are you a fan of this week?
I'm a fan of something that I bought. I've mentioned this at one of our previous podcasts, but it's the date night table topics box.
I haven't heard the date night one. Is this different than the family one that you had at Christmas?
So I bought the date night one, but we used it for our family because there were a lot of questions. So you can use it with a big family or not. Now, I haven't come across any inappropriate questions that I wouldn't want to ask my kids.
Right.
But I mean, obviously if I did, I would just shuffle that to the back. Yes. But no, this is a really neat box, especially talking about that dinner conversation of having a different question to talk about with your spouse, and whether it's just with them or if other people are there. This little box, though, stays on my dining room table, and we're trying to get into the dining room a little more frequently than what we have with sports and all that stuff going on. And so I don't remember how much I paid for it at TJ Maxx, but it wasn't, pretty sure it was under $10. But I mean, there are hundreds of questions in this little box, and Bryce was so thankful that I got it. And so he specifically had said, I'm so glad you got that. What a great idea. So it's just good to keep on the table and pull out a question.
Can you give us a sample question?
Yes. Okay. So one of them that we asked our whole family, which was a really interesting question, was what was your first job? Like, or what, what were your early jobs? If you could meet one celebrity, who would it be? I mean, it's these it can be completely random things, but it gets kind of a neat conversation going, and then you learn more about that person.
Right. Right. Yeah. I definitely think that those can be such a helpful tool. And we actually did an episode based on like this kind of a game. I'll have to link it in the show notes, but it can get like you said, Mindy, it can be for any kind of group. It can be for your family, or if you go out once a month with your girlfriends and you always find yourself talking about the same things, maybe throw in a couple of these questions or something.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Sounds fun.
All right, Julie, what are you a fan of this week?
I'm a fan of a movie called Munich, The Edge of War. And it has Jeremy Irons. He plays the Prime Minister Chamberlain. And it's right before the start of World War II. And it's kind of it's a really niche, tiny little part of the war, like a 2-week period of the war. And it's kind of a spy thriller. They uncover some information that he's trying to get the prime minister to believe, which is going to change his decision on something. And so it's really interesting. We watched it on Netflix.
Okay.
So it's really good.
Oh, well, I'm always looking for a new movie, and I love World War II books and movies. So that sounds like a good one. Yeah. I am also a fan of a movie. I am a fan of the movie American Underdog. So I actually saw this in the theater on Tuesday night with my oldest son. American Underdog is the story of NFL MVP and Hall of Fame quarterback Kurt Warner, who went from stocking shelves at a supermarket to becoming an American football star. And the journey is great. The movie is great. If you don't know his story, I didn't know a lot of his story, and so I liked just seeing it unfold right before my eyes. My son went into knowing a little bit of it, but he did not know all that we saw in the movie, and it was very interesting to him. So a great movie to go and see if you want to see something with boys. But I love inspirational sports movies, and so I feel like we always end up enjoying them together.
I've been trying to see that one and just haven't made it yet. But I've heard it's really good.
It is really good. I don't know how much longer it's going to be out theaters because I didn't realize that it'd come out right around Christmas. So if you want to go and see it, get there. But it'll be coming, I'm sure, to streaming service after that.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see that. I'm so excited.
Yes. So very, very good. All right, listeners, we hope that you've enjoyed our episode on Midlife Marriage today. On Instagram this week, maybe we will post some pictures in honor of Valentine's Day of us and our spouses or something like that. So come and find us at Midlife Matters Podcast on Instagram. If you have any advice or experiences you want to share, topic ideas, you can email us at midlifematterspodcast@gmail.com. All right, Julie and Mindy, thanks for talking with me today.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Happy Valentine's.
Yes, happy Valentine's Day to you guys and all of our listeners. All right, we'll talk to you next week.
All right.
Bye.
We're so happy you joined us today. You can find the show notes for this episode at midlifematterspodcast.com. Also, please tell a friend about the show and help them hit the free subscribe button on their favorite podcast app. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast. That's where we post pictures and stories about all the things we talk about in each episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.